And we're back again. Sorry for a little bit of a break this time. Not a half a week like last time, but still had to do some stuff. But before this reading, I decided I wanted to read a little quote to you before we start the introduction. The quote is from Carl Sagan. Who is more humble? The scientist who looks at the universe with an open mind and accepts whatever the universe has to teach us, or somebody who says that everything in this book must be considered the literal truth and never mind the fallibility of all the human beings involved. Which is pretty much how I feel about trying to persuade people to think critically about their holy figures and the delusion that people seem to have that they know exactly what God wants of them because they've been told, whether it's been from the books or the hadiths or whatever excuse you have for stopping thinking. But this surah number 18, I'll try and remember to put the right number this time, is titled The Cave. And the introduction reads, a Meccan surah which gets its name from the sleepers of the cave, whose story takes a prominent place in the surah, verses 9 to 26. This surah also deals with two other stories, Moses' meeting with an unidentified figure, and the story of Dul Karnain. Dul Karnain. Dul. I don't know how to pronounce an apostrophe in the middle of a word. A parable is put forward for the people of Mecca, the parable of the luscious gardens belonging to an arrogant and ungrateful man, which God reduces to dust. The surah opens and closes with references to the Quran itself. So apparently it seems like maybe my little quote will be relevant and not just relevant to other things. So there's also a note on page 188 in my book, which I would like to remember to look up. Literally the two-horned one, said by some to be Alexander. So that's who presumably Dul Karnaim is. But yeah, that's the introduction. So let's see what the book has to tell us. All praise is for Allah, who revealed the book to his servant, allowing no crookedness in it, making it perfectly upright, to warn the disbelievers of a severe torment from him, to give good news to the believers who do good, that they will have a fine reward, in which they will remain forever, and to warn those who claim Allah has offspring. Jesus in Christianity and angels in Arab. Yeah, because as I've read from the book several times in the notes, they believed the pagan religions of the Arab Peninsula at the time held that the angels were the daughters of God. Interestingly, there's a lot of weirdnesses and sort of slight jabs I've noticed when I'm sort of reading these notes by myself against the pagans in the Quran. There's a lot of jabs against the pagans that some of them I don't even notice, but I take personal offense every time he talks about the disbelievers, whether or not Muhammad is talking about the pagans or not. This sentence here, allowing no crookedness in it. So this is sort of where we get the whole weird dichotomy, it seems, because this kind of sentiment is apparently ubiquitous at least amongst all of the types of Muslims who seek out someone who describes themselves as an Islamophobe. All of those people seem to have this sort of firm, solid belief that God would not allow their perception of the Quran to be maligned in any way. There is no crookedness. There cannot be any corruption that seeps into their understanding of the Quran. And that's kind of what I want to emphasize here. The image you have in your head of what God wants you to do only exists inside your own head. It might be a reflection of what God actually wants you to do, but it can at best be a pale reflection, a pale comparison, and not an unclear, an imperfect approximation to the true word of God. Regardless of whether or not you think it is actually the true word of God or not. And that kind of there were fallible humans involved at every single step, and sort of insisting that there cannot be any crookedness in the thing that exists only in your head because the book you read it from said that there can be no crookedness in it is so mind-bogglingly moronic that it doesn't even need to be commented on any further, at least. All right, I would have assumed it didn't need any commenting, but apparently it did. Yeah, those those who claim Allah has offspring. Apparently not me today. I'm not the one who needs to be warned today. Woohoo! They have no knowledge about this, nor did their forefathers. It is a monstrous assertion that comes out of their mouths. What they say is nothing but lies. Ditto. Ditto. Um, there's nothing inherently truthful to be said for anyone who says anything. Uh, like, they have no knowledge. Yes, absolute certain knowledge is impossible. If you come saying, well, I know that they're wrong, then sure, by implication, you know that the other person, also the person who says something else, or yeah, if you think that you know the truth, then somebody who says something other, you necessarily believe that they don't know the truth. They know something they are wrong about. But what they say is nothing but lies. This is sort of a weirdness because what we mean by lies in modern sense is intention, and maybe that's what's implied by this text, though in which case it is just a semantic salad. It's just a word game because lying implies knowing that the truth is otherwise and then saying something other than what you know to be true. Most people will lie or tell untruths on accident. They will be wrong. There is a very weird jump when people go from, well, when I say things like, well, I think maybe all of these people, all of these hadith writers, made the same mistake in trying to interpret like the word of God, the word of the infinite, the understanding granted to us by the infinite. I think they may have made the same mistake, and I get these retorts. Oh, you think they were all lying? And I was like, do you not understand the concept of making a mistake? And honestly, it doesn't seem like you do. Does not seem like you do. It seems like there's a very black and white mind or black and white reality, and that's why you approach religion, because you're just not comfortable in this world where where there's shades of grey and nuance. That's not comfortable for people. People seem to need this certainty in order to feel whatever they feel. But I think you can grow up because adults are capable of understanding nuance. But Prophet, are you going to worry yourself to death over them if they do not believe in this message? Good. See, don't worry yourself to death. That's a good one. I like this one. No, let's not. I know he spends way too much time comforting himself, but let's be clear. It is a good thing to comfort yourself if you genuinely, honestly believe that all of the people, or many of the people around you, are going to spend their lives in hellfire because they have a different interpretation of God than you. Then you need to calm yourself down a little bit to avoid doing evil in order to protect them for their own good because you have such good intentions. That's why I don't like good intentions, by the way, because it allows people to have false certainty to impose their will onto others. But let's see. We have adorned the earth with attractive things so that we may test people to find out which of them do best. But we shall reduce all this to barren dust. Prophet, do you find the companions in the cave? Let's take a moment here. It's kind of interesting because the usefulness of this imagining the hereafter is essentially to instill this idea of acting morally, even though you might never see the positive results of what the moral actions you do. I think there is a much easier way to get at this, and you can get, funnily enough, actually, you can get there even through. It's going to be a weird thing to compare to, but I've read the Satanic Bible, and he has a very primitive moral philosophy, but it is a primitive moral philosophy which is still sufficient to achieve this same goal, and that's namely this personal hedonism thing, your own pride. That's what you can glorify by You are the kind of person who does good for the sake of no reward, simply for your own sake, simply for the sake of goodness in itself. To believe that, regardless of whether you're religious or secular, tends to make you act morally, even in situations where it does not benefit you. Um, that said, this Anton LaVey in the Satanic Bible would insist that it is necessary to gain things of value to you, but we can go a little bit further. We can have a sort of ethical egoism, it's called. But I like the fact that that we can reference the Satanic Bible. It's just funny to me. Just funny to me that it's similarly competent as the Quran, in moral philosophy at least. Prophet, do you find the companions in the cave and Al-Hakim so wondrous among all our other signs? Oh, let's look it up. Let's look it up. Maybe it is so wondrous. Al-Hakim is variously interpreted as being the name of the mountain in which the cave was situated, the name of their dog, or an inscription bearing their names. Okay. Interesting. When the young men sought refuge in the cave and said, "Our Lord, grant us your mercy and find us a good way out of our ordeal, we sealed their ears with sleep in the cave for years. Then we woke them so that we could make clear which of the two parties was better able to work out how long they had been there." What a weird test. Prophet, we shall tell you their story as it really was. They were young men who believed in their Lord, and we gave them more and more guidance. We gave strength to their hearts when they stood up and said, "Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. We shall never call upon any god other than him, for that would be an outrageous thing to do." Well, very silly indeed. "These people of ours have taken gods other than him. Why do they not produce clear evidence about them?" Yeah, ditto, bro. "Who could be more unjust than someone who makes up lies about God?" Yeah, ditto, bro. "Now you have left such people and what they worshipped instead of God, take refuge in the cave." Left such people and what they worshipped instead of God. "Now that you have left such people and what they have worshipped instead of God, take refuge in the cave. God will shower his mercy on you and make you an easy way out of your ordeal. You could have seen the light of the sun as it rose, moving away to the right of the cave, and when it set, moving away to the left of them, while they lay in the wide space inside the cave. This is one of God's signs. Those people God guides are rightly guided, but you will find no protector to lead to the right path those he leaves to stray. This is one of God's signs. Okay, and then he does the same nonsense sophistry. That I'm speaking the truth, and everyone who doesn't believe me is definitely not listening to God properly enough. And this is nonsense sophistry. But this is one of those signs. So you could have seen the light of the sun as it rose, moving away to the right of their cave, and when it set, moving to the left of them, while they lay in the space. And this is apparently one of their signs. So let's look it up in my other one to see if it makes any more sense, because this is clearly ridiculous. No, of course not. You can still see in the light of the sun as it rose, moving away from right, and when it set, moving away to the left of them, while they lay in the wide space. This is one of God's signs. Oh, okay, well, great. The light of the sun, apparently. The orbits. It makes so much sense if you're like have Bill O'Reilly's "the tides come in, the tides go out." You can't explain it. If you have that level of non-knowledge, non-understanding of how the celestial mechanics, how astrophysics works, if that's your level, then sure, this is very impressive. But going back to sort of the argument from all of the miraculous things that Muhammad apparently knew because of God showing it to him. This clearly shows that God hadn't shown him very much intelligence whatsoever, because here you could have made a very good sign, a very good fundamental prediction on physics, that we would have found very useful for the past 1,000 years. But no, we were left to speculate this, and for some reason this level of understanding is exactly what you'd expect from Bronze Age nomads, or I guess it was Iron Age at this point, but like I don't think they had very much workable iron. Well, maybe they did, I don't know. Yeah, it's shows exactly the time. It's a sign of the time it was written. You would have thought they were awake, though they lay asleep. We turned them over to the right and to the left, with their dog stretching out its forelegs at the entrance. If you had seen them, you would have turned and run away, filled with fear of them. In time we woke them, and they began to question one another. One of them asked, "How long have you been here?" And some answered, "A day or part of a day." But then others said, "Your Lord knows best how long you have been here. One of you go to the city with your silver coins, find out where the best food is there, and bring some back. But be careful not to let anyone know about you. If they found you out, they would stone you or force you to return to their religion, where you would never come to any good." Force you to return to their religion. It's a fascinating idea. In this way, we brought them to people's attention so that they might know that God's promise of resurrection is true, that there is no doubt about the last hour, though people argue among themselves. Oh my goodness. Okay, it's very easy for me. Imagine an evil god. Imagine an evil god who was trying to conquer people's minds, who wasn't powerful, but was trying to convince people he was powerful. A jinn, in the words of this book. This kind of character would absolutely make these kinds of statements to these kinds of idiots, and they would believe them. So for me, I mean, this, so that they might know God's promise of resurrection is true. That leads you to there, really. The fact that they slept for over a day and didn't know how long they had slept. What? And that there is no doubt about the last, and there is no doubt. There can be no doubt in this. From the evidence of oversleeping. Goodness gracious, I suppose I have so much proof of God, given how many times I have overslept. I overslept on Sunday. Clearly, that was proof that there can be no doubt about the last hour. Funnily enough, I overslept before reading this. Some say the sleepers were 3 and their dog made 4. Others say they were 5 and their dog made 6, guessing in the dark. And some say there were 7 and their dog made 8. Say, prophet, my Lord knows best how many there were. Nobody, only God knows. Yeah, I mean, when you read the phrase, my Lord knows best, that's like how your Lord knows best how long you have been here. Exactly. It's this sort of, let's not squabble over the details. Let's test it, right? That's how you interpret this. Only God knows. Let's try and find out what we can. And so here you have this sort of same sentiment. Oh no, forgot to read some. Some said construct a building over them. Yeah, okay, so let's read this one again. In this way we brought them to people's attention so that they might know God's promise of resurrection is true, and that there is no doubt about the last hour, though people argue among themselves. Some said, construct a building over them. Their Lord knows best about them. Those who prevailed said, we shall build a place of worship over them. Some say the sleepers were 3 and their dog made 4. Others say there were 5 and dog made 6, guessing in the dark. And some say there were 7 and their dog made 8. Say, prophet, my Lord knows best how many there were. Only a few have real knowledge about them. So do not argue, but stick to what is clear, and do not ask any of these people about them. Do not say of anything, I will do that tomorrow, without adding, God willing. And whenever you forget, remember your Lord and say, may Lord God guide me closer to it. Do not say anything, I will do that tomorrow, without adding God will. Without constantly supplicating yourself before God. Like, without constantly, this is like the propaganda master's manual. Like, oh, Big Brother is watching, always remind yourself, always remind yourself, Big Brother is watching. Is that the problem? Maybe you need to read 1984. Some say the sleepers stayed in their caves for 300 years. Some added 9 more. Say, prophet, God knows best how long they stayed. His is the knowledge of all that is hidden in the heavens and the earth. How well he sees, how well he hears, and they have no one to protect them other than him. He does not allow anyone to share his rule. This makes so much sense if he's just a jinn. Prophet, follow what has been revealed to you of your Lord's scripture. There is no changing his word, nor can you find any refuge except with him. Content yourself with those who pray to their Lord in the morning and evening, seeking his approval, and do not let your eyes turn away from them out of desire for the attractions of this worldly life. Do not yield to those whose hearts we have made heedless of our Quran, those who follow their own low desires, those whose ways are unbridled. Unbridled, you say? How dare you? At least bridled better than I don't know. Most of the things I want to quote as moral failings of Islam are typically things that it disallows for no apparent reason other than glorifying God, as if God was some sort of petty child who needed constant validation from us. I mean, you tell me that God doesn't need anything from us, but he clearly demands it from us, and he punishes us if he doesn't get it. I mean, that's... Who cares what word we use of need? In this case, he acts like somebody who needs our praise, even if he doesn't really. Actually, he doesn't need it, but he just demands it. He's just going to punish us for not giving it to him. What children you are. How is it possible to be this gullible? Say, now the truth has come from your Lord. Let those who wish to believe in it do so, and let those who wish to reject it do so. We have prepared a fire for the wrongdoers that will envelop them from all sides. If they call for relief, they will be relieved with water like molten metal, scalding their faces. What a terrible drink! What a painful resting place! Oh, the good old hellfire sermon! I can't do an Irish accent, but it springs forth when this kind of, this is just golden. It will be relieved with water like molten metal. Amazing. Hypercritical fluid. Supercritical. Sorry. At that point, I believe. Well, it depends on the pressure, of course. As for those who believe and do good deeds, we do not let the reward of anyone who does a good deed go to waste. They will have gardens of lasting bliss, graced with flowing streams. There they will be adorned with bracelets of gold. There they will wear green garments of fine silk and brocade. There they will be comfortably seated on soft chairs. What a blessed reward! What a pleasant resting place! Believe in me and you will have everything. Don't believe in me and you will have so much worse than nothing. Exactly like a jinn would say. Tell them the parable of two men. For one of them we made two gardens of grapevines, surrounded them with date palms, and put cornfields in between. Both gardens yielded fruit and did not fail in any way. We made a stream flow through them, and so he had abundant fruit. One day, while talking to his friend, he said, I have more wealth and a larger following than you. He went into his garden and wronged himself by saying, I do not think this will ever perish, or that the last hour will ever come. Even if I were to be taken back to my Lord, I would certainly find something even better there. Even if I were taken back to my Lord, I would certainly find something even better there. So to me, this sounds like, because the thing I wanted to make a point out of here is this is the problem. If you think that if everything all good things in your life will last forever, then yeah, one day you're going to have a rude awakening, because nothing lasts forever. Everything is impermanent. So... Oh, that's curious. Maybe that's why my hands... Huh. But for me, it seems like the most important thing isn't this thing, because... Or that the last hour will ever come. It's a sort of, this will last forever sentiment. Even if I were to... But it doesn't seem like the lack of faith is necessarily clear here, because even if I were to be taken back to my Lord, I would certainly find something even better there. This is sort of a recognition that heaven will be better than the worldly desires, while still maintaining this delusion that his worldly desires will never end. They will only increase. Like the last hour will just be a continuation where his garden becomes... Like he's saying, I have such a great life, this must be heaven. And no, no, that's such great blasphemy, as we will hear. His companion retorted, have you no faith in him who created you from dust, from a small drop of fluid, then shaped you into a man? But for me, he is God, my Lord, and I will never set up any partner with him. Did he do that? What was the partner he set up with him? If only when you entered your garden you had said, this is God's will. There is no power not given by God. Although you see I have less wealth and offspring than you, my Lord may well give me something better than your garden, and send thunderbolts on your garden from the sky, so that it becomes a heap of barren dust. Or its water may sink so deep into the ground that you will never be able to reach it again. I mean, these are, in the context, these make perfect sense to, like, admonish somebody who doesn't understand the inherent nature of change, how nature constantly fluctuates and varies, and like the understanding that nothing is permanent. This, and using like God as this metaphor for nature, that's perfectly valid. Say like nature may well change in such a way that all you have, all the good you have, is gone, and somebody else has all of the has much better than you had ever had. That's a fairly decent. The idea that this you should have said, this is God's will. There is no power not given. The idea that you need to constantly remind yourself that everything you get is from God. Uh, it's slavery. It's sort of willing slavery. It's sort of saying I want I want to honor my master just in case he beats me up. Um, Proof by punishment, the proof by threat of punishment. Uh, but I mean, sure, if you, in the sense that it is moral, in the sense that it is just basic philosophy, fairly decent. In the sense that this is a metaphor for nature. Like this is what is. There is nothing not given by nature. There is nothing apart from what is. That is a reasonable thing to say. You don't necessarily need the God metaphor to make it work. Although it makes sense to me that people at the time did use the God metaphor because there's so much they didn't understand. That's one of the joys, one of the reasons I suspect atheism and secularism and all of the varieties of religion have sort of sprouted up in such a myriad of different ways is precisely because it's not obvious. Because it's not necessary, really, honestly. Because we now know so many other things. We know so many other details of how nature works. We don't need to rely on this metaphor of God in order to make useful statements about how nature works. And this useful, like, philosophical insight that nothing lasts forever could have been phrased as though nothing lasts forever. But, of course, it's hard to convince somebody of that. So I understand the sort of need to, or the desire to appeal to some sort of baseline agreed upon notion of knowledge, but in the modern sense we just say, did not the people in XYZ natural disaster, did they not think their pleasures would last forever? I'm sure they did. I'm sure you could count on examples from these kinds of people. And so it was. His fruit was completely destroyed, and there he was, wringing his hands over what he had invested in, as it dropped on its trellises. Ooh, that's a nice word. And saying, I wish I had not set up any partner to my Lord. What was the partner he set up? Why is this being taken to have anything to do with one's humility before God, rather than one's lack of understanding of natural forces? That's what's happened here. Somebody who did not understand natural forces got punished for his ignorance. That's not necessarily ignorance of God, that's ignorance of nature. But of course, God is just a metaphor for nature, so I guess it's the same thing. He had no forces to help him other than God. He could not even help himself. In that situation, the only protection is that of God, the true God. He gives the best rewards and the best outcome. But of course, if you believed in God and you felt punished, you would still go, oh no, I trust God. I accept that I will get my reward in the hereafter. So God wouldn't have protected you. God would have done whatever God would have done regardless. That's why it's a good metaphor for nature, because God, if you think of God as a capricious, petty tyrant, then that makes sense, because nature is capricious, cold. It doesn't care about us. It just does. It just follows its own natural rules. But the real big stinger between using it as a metaphor and believing in it as religion is that you start glorifying and anthropomorphizing these forces of nature, which you have the capacity, the means to understand, and the means to plan around, instead of saying, well, actually, no, it was because I didn't worship, it was because I didn't pray enough, because I didn't say his praises, because I misspoke when I was so happy. I misspoke and I said, this will surely last forever. And his friend went, aha, you clearly put a partner up to God because you don't understand that this one. Our ignorance should be our shield, and the ignorance of this poor man who could not imagine anything greater than what he had, or at least a continuation of what he had, the greatness of what he already had. That's I feel much more sorry for this man than I feel for a God who was maligned by not getting credit once. How dare he? What a cunt God is. Um, Tell them too what the life of this world is like. We send water down from the skies, and the earth's vegetation absorbs it. But soon the plants turn to dry stubble scattered about by the wind. God has power over everything. Yeah, I mean, you don't need the last bit. This is a useful insight, that nothing lasts forever, and that things might seem outside of our control. But as soon as you insist that it's about God, then you delude yourself into thinking that by offerings, by prayers, by worship, by making sure you show gratitude enough to this unfeeling, unflinching, uncaring nature, that you can actually understand the rules to, you can understand the mechanisms of how it works. But instead of actually going in to understand the mechanism, see, this is why faith is where reason stops. It's because instead of actually going, well, the life of this world is like this. Water comes from the skies, and the earth's vegetation absorbs it. But soon the plants turn to dry stubble scattered about the winds. Why? Instead of asking that question, why? Instead of exploring that question, why and how, and the methods and means by preventing it, we say God has power over everything. It is the end of reason. That is what faith is. It is when you stop using your brain anymore because you can't possibly take the fact that you don't have certain knowledge. It is so tragic to see when otherwise intelligent human beings completely break down. My best example of this is Descartes, who gives us the genius insight, I think therefore I am. The only thing we can have any certain knowledge about is the fact of existence. Something exists, and then immediately after goes, well, that's depressing. Let's invent a god, so that a good god. Pretend that I can know that a good god must exist, so that I can justify all of the other things I can know. It's such a tragic leap. You see so often otherwise intelligent, genius level intelligence people decide to stop thinking, stop using their brains, because whatever their reason might be, apparently certainty is so desperately needed by humans, so desperately sought after by humans, that we will even accept false certainty. We'll even accept superstition, and call it religion. And so it's not superstition anymore, because that's everyone believes. Like, everyone used to believe in superstition. Wonder. Wealth and children are the attractions of this worldly life, but lasting good works have a better reward with your Lord and give better grounds for hope. One day we shall make the mountains move, and you will see the earth as an open plain. We shall gather all people together, leaving no one. They will be lined up before your Lord. Now you have come to us, as we first created you, although you claimed we had not made any such appointment for you. The record of their deeds will be laid open, and you will see the guilty dismayed at what they contain, saying, woe to us, what a record this is! It does not leave any deed, small or large, unaccounted for. They will find everything they did laid in front of them. Your Lord will not be unjust to anyone. Okay, I certainly hope not. But if he continues to punish women for showing their hair to people, then yeah, no, he's unjust, and then he will be unjust to everyone. If God is as he has been described in this book, then God will be unjust. That is what you've told me. God will be unjust. But he's following his own rules. Yes, that's what tyrants do. They invent rules so that they might be unjust about them. Presumably, now let's not make those observation. We said to the angels, bow down before Adam, and they all bowed down, but not Iblis. He was one of the jinn, and he disobeyed his Lord's commands. Are you people going to take him and his offspring as your masters instead of me, even though they are your enemies? What a bad bargain for the evildoers. I did not make them witness to the creation of the heavens and the earth, nor to their own creation. I did not take as my supporters those who lead others astray. Again, wouldn't you, if this came from us directly from Iblis, if instead of God reaching into Muhammad and promoting this revelation, instead of God revealing himself to to Muhammad, this was Iblis revealing himself to Muhammad, would he not say the same, but claim godhood for himself, claim that the other one was the enemy, claim that he, and following what this revelation was? Imagine that scenario. Just imagine it, and it suddenly falls down. Why are you so gullible? I do not make them witnesses to the creation. On the day God will say, call on those you have claimed were my partners. They will call them, but they will not answer. We shall set up a deadly gulf between them. I guess it's for the pagans again. The evildoers will see the fire, and they will realize that they are about to fall into it. They will find no escape from it. In this Quran, we have presented every kind of description for people, but man is more contentious than any other creature. You've presented every kind of description. That's your proof. That's the whole point. That's the whole thing I've been irked by the whole way through. All of the time, this is the proof. The proof is we described what will happen. We're just giving warning. All we can do is tell you the truth. And it's true because we told you it was true. Like, if anyone were to describe hell as poetically as, like, don't the Buddhists also describe reality in great detail, in great complexity? Do they not also describe what will happen to you in the next life and the next life and so on for them? The ability to give descriptions, no matter how beautifully sounding those descriptions are in the original Arabic, which I don't think it is, by the way, but just so in case for those of you who still think I should listen to it, if descriptions matter, then there are many, many other descriptions that we should consider. Many other descriptions that go against this Quran. Now that guidance has come to them, what stops these people from believing and asking forgiveness from their Lord before the fate of earlier peoples annihilates them or their torment confronts them? Well, I can answer that. No evidence. You've just told me I should be worried about this infinite punishment, and you tell me definitely remember to praise God enough. I was like, actually, there's two reasons. One, no evidence, no reason to believe in this God. There's no, apart from the sort of Pascal's wager nonsense of what if he is actually real and he's actually this much of a piece of shit, then you'll regret it. No, that's the other reason. If God is really as much of an absolute piece of garbage as this book and most other books, to be fair, describe him as, then I look forward to rebelling against him. I continue to rebel against him to the day of my torment. Throughout my torment, it will be my comfort to know that at least I wasn't a willing slave. I will get to gloat from all of you standing in the gardens above me, spitting on me and whatever else you want to do to justify your own slavery, I will sit there content knowing that at least I am not as pathetic as you are. That is what will comfort me, and the reason I have no intention of asking forgiveness from this piece of shit. This piece of shit, this piece of shit, this Lord, this God you claim has any power over anything with no reason to believe so. This God definitely needs to ask us of forgiveness, not the other way around. No matter how many insults I fling at him, he still has more coming. He still owes us. We only send messengers to bring good news and to deliver warning. Yet the disbelievers seek to refute the truth with false arguments and make fun of my messages and warning. Yes, we do. We do absolutely do that. Because it's so absolutely ridiculous. But this false arguments, yeah, sure. I'm sure you don't believe the arguments we present you. And I'm sure the only way you could not believe, honestly, it starts feeling to me like Muhammad was just convinced by Pascal's wager. He was convinced by this. The wager is, imagine there is like you do a square, a cross to divide, and on one column you have, well, there is no God. On the other one, there is a God, and then you have you believed on one of the rows and you didn't believe another. So if there is no God and you believed or you didn't believe, it makes no difference. If there is a God and you believed versus you didn't believe, that makes a big difference. So it seems to me that that Muhammad was really convinced about this. Why he sort of combines his view of the sort of the people of the book, insistent on this as being the correct or a good logical argument. And so it seems to me that Muhammad, after having been convinced of this piss poor argument, seeks to impose other people with the views he has, or sort of convince other people by whatever means necessary to, and by whatever language tricks, by whatever, oh, they're all false, and what I'm telling you is true. How could I lie? How could they not? How dare they lie? I obviously wouldn't dare lying because I'm telling the truth. It's like, it's such a retarded circular argument constantly flowing through him. But it makes sense if he genuinely believed that anyone who didn't promote God would suffer forever. And he could have genuinely believed that from Pascal's wager. No need for any kind of revelation beyond just poor reasoning. So we go on. But yeah, it's fun to make fun of his messages and warnings because they are both from a cruel God and from a silly God, from clearly a figment of our primitive minds. But indeed, who could be more wrong than the person who is reminded of his Lord's messages and turns his back on them, ignoring what his hands are storing up for him in the hereafter? We have put covers over their hearts so they cannot understand the Quran, and we have put heaviness in their ears. Although you call them to guidance, they will never accept it. So it's sort of good, like again, preempting any criticism and saying, oh yeah, well, they're just, God's just made it so that they can't believe. That's why they won't listen to the Quran. That's why they won't listen to the truth. Because clearly what I'm saying is true, and the only reason anyone would not listen is because God made them unable to listen. Flip it around. What if God made it so that so many of you were so gullible to believe this absolute vapid nonsense? But God actually wanted us to be critical of this vapid nonsense. What if this is the test and believing it is failure? That is the refutation to Pascal's wager. What if God is not this weird creature you have made him out to be, and God is in fact actually a good person, or a good being, is actually good rather than capricious, cruel, petty tyrant. Your Lord is the most forgiving and full of mercy. If he took them to task for all the wrongs they have done, I read it. If he took them to task for all the wrongs they have done, he would hasten their punishment on. They have an appointed time from which they will have no escape. Just like the former communities we destroyed for doing wrong, we set an appointed time for their destruction. Fascinating. Moses said to his servant, I will not rest until I reach the place. Interestingly, this is sort of taken. I'm like putting myself in the. I shouldn't be doing that. That's what made me stop for almost a week last time, like putting myself into the mind of a believer. But like this seems to me to be one of those cases where it's like, oh well, actually there's proof here because they were given all of the proof, but they decided not to believe it. But reality, what we have is, well, God told me that after the fact. It's after, yeah, it's post hoc ergo propter hoc. It's after the fact they were destroyed, and therefore we know that actually the reason they were destroyed, they didn't worship God enough. And it's like, well, what about all of the other sinful cities that are currently? Oh, God has an appointed time that He won't usher on their appointed time any faster. What about all of the cities where they were mostly good, like the earthquake in Lisbon is the typical example of natural evil. And like Lisbon was one of the most religious cities. If you wanted to actually ruin a den of decadence, you attack Paris or London. You don't attack, you don't, or like somewhere in Bohemia. You don't attack Lisbon, one of the most religious cities at the time, and probably still. That's like, for some reason God decides to punish his own dedicated followers more than the people who don't follow him. It's almost as God only has power of those who already believe. What a fascinating insight. God said to his servant, Moses said to his servant, I will not rest until I reach the place where the two seas meet, even if it takes me years. But when they reached the place where the two seas meet, they had forgotten all about their fish, which made its way into the sea and swam away. Okay, I'm gonna look that up. That was weird. Weird. They've forgotten. Fish aren't like dogs that you don't. If you don't pay attention to them, they just go away. What's going on here? 61. Okay, well, I'm assuming it's gonna get explained later then. They journeyed on, and then Moses said to his servant, Give us our lunch. This journey of ours is very tiring. And the servant said, Remember when we were resting by the rock? I forgot the fish. Satan made me forget to pay attention to him. See, if you believe in God, you always have someone to blame. And it must have made its way into the sea. How strange! Oh, I see now why we're so gullible, because Muhammad was, or Moses at least, was also very, very gullible. Um, Moses said, Then that was the place we were looking for. So the two turned back, retraced their footsteps. I mean, okay, that's a good save. Because you're like, okay, I'm not going to call you out for obviously being a lazy asshole, but we're going to say that that's where we were supposed to go, so we're going to go back there and definitely not to find the fish. Though to be clear, what I suspect happened was they ate the fish, and then Moses, like, they ate the rations earlier, and then Moses was like, okay, now it's time to open these rations, and they were like, I must have forgotten them down there. Yep, Satan made me do it. Obviously, I would have taken care of them. Oh, sorry, that was a salty burp. No, uh, fishy burp. Honestly, it's yeah. Gullibility is apparently a very, very good virtue in these religions. And found one of. Okay, so they retraced their foot. Two turned back, retraced their footsteps, and found one of our servants, a man to whom we had granted our mercy, and whom we had given knowledge of our own. Moses said to him, May I follow you, so that you can teach me some of the right guidance you have been taught? The man said, You will not be able to bear with me patiently. How could you be patient in matters beyond your knowledge? I mean, what? Have you heard of school? We force children to be patient in matters beyond their knowledge all of the time. Oh, to be fair, adults are typically more stuck in their ways and less willing to learn, less willing to sort of engage with new knowledge. So less patient, indeed, with people who reject their perspective. You might be thinking I'm talking about myself, but I might be talking about... But yeah. Moses said, God willing, you will find me patient. I will not disobey you in any way. I mean, it's a good setup, at least. The man said, if you follow me, then do not query anything I do before I mention it to you myself. It's fair teacher-student relationship. A bit strict, I'd say, but honestly, quite a bad... I mean, it's useful in the sense that you don't get too many questions all the time. But if it's like an introverted person, not very sociable, presumably a hermit, then I can understand this. But it's more useful, as somebody with a little bit of teaching experience, I can say it is more useful to have people always ask questions. That's much better than waiting for when you are ready to explain it. But then we go on. They traveled on. Later, when they got into a boat, the man made a hole in it. Moses said, how could you make a hole in it? Do you want to drown its passengers? What a strange thing to do. He replied, did I not tell you you would never be able to bear with me patiently? See, this is such... I hate it. I hate when people make curiosity and ignorance into these sort of vile sins. Like, this is not... The person who is impatient here is the teacher who was apparently chosen by God. If the teacher was patient, then the teacher is the one who needs to be patient here. Be patient with your students. Be patient with Moses. Moses has all of the understanding of a normal man, and he sees what you do and goes, what are you doing? Like, all he says is, what a strange thing to do. I mean, sure, he does make all of these statements, these assumptions, but the reason why is he's exclaiming his emotion, expressing his ignorance, showing what he doesn't know. That's a good thing. If you're a good teacher, you want your students to make these kinds of mistakes so that, or in this case, I'm not sure it's going to be a mistake, but you want your students to make mistakes openly and freely and in your earshot so that you can correct them and show them the true way. But of course, here the important thing is that you have to be patient with your teacher, not the other way around. This grotesque twisting around only makes sense when your master is a tyrant. Moses said, forgive me for forgetting. Do not make it too hard for me to follow you. Yeah, yes, exactly. And so they traveled on. Then when they met a young boy and the man killed him, Moses said, how could you kill an innocent person? He has not killed anyone. What a terrible thing to do. He replied, did I not tell you you would never be able to bear with me patiently? Again, same problem. Moses reacts like a normal human being, and this psychopath literally says, no, you're the one who's being impatient here. I'm not going to explain anything to you, and I think you should just shut up and listen and just wait. That's what true patience is. Not engaging with reality in any sense of way. Being silent when you are confused. This is what I'm saying. Faith is when reason stops. Moses said, from now on, if I query you with anything you do, banish me from your company. You have put up with enough from me. And so they traveled on. Then when they came to a town and asked the inhabitants for food, but they were refused I was going to read it differently. But were refused hospitality, they saw a wall there that was on the point of falling down, and the man repaired it. Moses said, but if you had wished, you could have taken payment for doing that. He said, this is where you and I part company. I will tell you the meaning of the things you could not bear with patiently. But if you had wished, you could have taken payment for it. It's just such a good, normal, cynical outlook. It's such... Why is it made to be a sin to express yourself? Why is speaking made to be a sin? Why is thinking made to be a sin? Literally what's happening here. Moses is racking his brains. He sees all of this incomprehensible things, and he racks his brain trying to understand it, and exclaims, Why did you do that? I don't understand. And then the man goes, you're so impatient. What a cruel, reckless, absolute piece of trash God is, and apparently all of God's chosen people, God's chosen messengers here. Such cunts. But let's see. Let's see what the justification for these are. Let's see if that, because, but let's be clear, even if there are good justifications, what this man, messenger of God, is doing is still despicable and antithetical to reason. It's still the end of reason. That is still what is being demanded of you, to stop thinking so that you can be told things. Instead of, that's the point of faith. Instead, replacing thinking with memorization, replacing understanding with reading, replacing knowledge with recitation. It is such a tragic thing that this happens to people. But let's see. The boat belonged to some needy people who made their living from the sea, and I damaged it because I knew that coming after them was a king who was seizing every serviceable boat by force. Interesting. Good, clever one. I like that. This is a good cynic, but could have told them very many times earlier. The young boy had parents who were people of faith, and so, fearing he would trouble them through wickedness and disbelief, we wished that their Lord should give them another child, purer and more compassionate in his place. That's it. Oh my God, I hoped there was something else. I hoped there was something else. Literally here, literally advocating for killing children who are disobedient, who are not grateful enough. What a disgusting religion you have. What a disgusting thing to have written in your holy books. That this is a messenger of God, a messenger of God, of God's will, who kills someone simply out of fear. The young boy had parents who were people of faith, and so, fearing he would trouble them through wickedness and disbelief, we wish that their Lord should give them another child, purer and more compassionate in his place. There is no explanation given here. It is simply assumed that this is necessary for having a new child, a more pure and more compassionate child. What a disgusting thing to do. Not for any sin of action, simply because of fear. Because of their fear of him. Wow. Well, I guess God really is the piece of shit you tell me he is. Guess that explains why you're in this abusive relationship with him. Because God is perfectly willing to torture you and hurt you simply because of the fear that you instill into others. How despicable. The wall belonged to two young orphans. I mean, honestly, I feel like I need something to sort of emphasize this. How can it be that maybe I should need to like open this and be like, yeah, okay. This is the first time I'm gonna read it. Was killed destined to be a disbeliever. They was created, okay, by rebellion and disbelief. Oppress them by, see this language game. See, this is why actually it is good to be Islamophobic. Why it is, because it's just in language. See, this idea that you can be oppressed by others is rebellion and disbelief. Am I oppressing you by making these YouTube videos public, by sharing my hatred of your despicable tyrant God? According to these language games, these word tricks built in, which seemingly are built into the Arabic language, this nasty thought terminating cliches is what they're called actually. These seem to be built into Arabic inherently, and how disgusting it is to have this written out, that oppression can come from rebellion and disbelief. I mean, you can't even see this, I should scroll down, but rebellion and disbelief. Their love for him might make them follow him in disbelief. You should kill someone to protect the faith of the people who love them. You should kill someone for losing their faith. Here we have it on paper. Why I should have been afraid all along. I should have been afraid of posting this video, because apparently in your hadiths, killing people to prevent them from leading others astray is a good thing. How disgusting that people claim any kind of morality from this at all. How disgusting. Let's not read any more of that aggravating nonsense. How dare you? Honestly. The wall belonged to 2 young orphans in the town, and there was a buried treasure beneath it belonging to them. Their father had been a righteous man, so your Lord intended them to reach maturity and then dig up the treasure as a mercy from your Lord. I did not do these things of my own accord. These are the explanations for those things you could not bear with patience. You did not do these of your own accord. You're a puppet. And that's apparently why you couldn't explain it. And why couldn't you explain that? I do not do it out of my own accord. I simply know what is why. I don't know why, but I'm doing it because I trust in God. Like, that could have been a statement that would have made more sense here. But this thought-terminating cliches and these thought-terminating, faith. Faith is the end of reason. Prophet, they ask you about Dhul Qarnayn. Say, I will tell you something about him. We established his power in the land and gave him the means to achieve everything. He travelled on a certain road. Then, when he came to the setting of the sun, he found it seemed to be setting in a muddy spring. Nearby he found some people, and we said, Dhul Qarnayn, you may choose which of them to punish or show kindness to. He answered, we shall punish those who have done evil, and when they are returned to their Lord, he will punish them even more severely. While those who believed and did good deeds, what a despicable thing, and did good deeds will have the best of rewards. We shall command them to do what is easy for them. This is interesting too, because I once made the argument. I briefly stopped by the Muslim Lantern channel. I should have done many call-outs and stuff, but I realized I'm never doing that. That's such a worthless. I mean, honestly, it confirmed all of my deepest fears about Islam. Is like this glorification of certain knowledge. But one of the things he argued was that belief, like thinking good thoughts and believing, is an action, and so like it would be the sort of the same thing. But every time it is mentioned separately. It's mentioned separately, but at the same time, as though indicating they are equivalent, as though indicating it is a component, while still making clear that it is a separate thing. The act of doing good deeds should be the only thing written here. But because it's a trick of language, because this whole God-forsaken religion is just a trick of language, then it insists that you have to believe in order for good deeds to be valid. While those who believed and did good deeds will have the best rewards, we shall command them to do what is easy for them. He travelled on. Then when he came to the rising of the sun, he found it rising on a people for whom we had provided no shelter from it. And so it was. We knew all about him. He found it rising on a people for whom we had provided no shelter from it. So, okay, let's look it up in the book. I'm not looking that up in the hadiths, but gee. So, okay, I'm here there. I guess you need the hadiths to make sense of nonsense. That he travelled on. Then when he reached a place between 2 mountain barriers, he found beside them a people who could barely understand him. They said, Dhul Qarnayn, Gog and Magog are ruining this land. Will you build a barrier between them and us if we pay you a tribute? He answered, the power my Lord has given me is better than any tribute, but if you lend me your strength, I will put up a fortification between you and them. Bring me lumps of iron. And then, when he had filled the gap between the 2 mountain sides, he said, work your bellows. And then, when he had made it glow like a fire, he said, bring me molten metal to pour over it. Their enemies could not scale the barrier, nor could they pierce it. And he said, "This is a mercy from my Lord. But when my Lord's promise is fulfilled, he will raise this barrier to the ground. My Lord's promise always comes true." What is the... On that day we shall let them surge against each other like the waves, and then the trumpet will be blown, and we shall gather them all together. We shall show hell to the disbelievers, those whose eyes were blind to my sign, those who were unable to hear. Did they think that they could take my servants as masters instead of me? We have prepared hell as the disbelievers' resting place. No, I did not think that. Fascinatingly. Unless my servants becomes everything else in nature. All of the non-anthropomorphic things. All of the things that aren't sentient. We have no reason to give things sentience. We can explain things better than the ridiculous superstitions of the past. Say, prophet, shall we tell you who has the most to lose by their actions? Whose efforts in this world are misguided, even when they think they are doing good work? It is those who disbelieve in their Lord's message and deny that they will meet him. Their deeds come to nothing on the day of resurrection. We shall give them no... Oh, well, okay, so the thing I was talking about. We shall give them no weight. We shall literally not care about the good deeds of the disbelievers. Because the only good deeds in the name of God, that's the only thing that matters. Good deeds by themselves? No, not good enough. You have to do it as a believer. Why do you want to worship this tyrant? Why are you in this abusive relationship with your God? I mean, I guess if you're sure he's going to keep abusing you for literally anything, then I guess you do literally anything. God, goodness me. What an abusive God. Their recompense for having disbelieved and made fun of my messengers will be hell. My messages and my messengers will be hell. Look forward to it. But those who believe and do good deeds will be given the gardens of paradise, where they will remain, never wishing to leave. Say, prophet, if the whole ocean were ink for writing the words of my Lord, it would run dry before those words were exhausted, even if we were to add another ocean to it. Say, I am only a human being like you, to whom it has been revealed that your God is one. Anyone who fears to meet his Lord should do good deeds and give no one a share in the worship due to his Lord. Anyone should do good deeds. If you remove God, it's such a good book. But once you have God in it, it becomes poison. And was it no more clear? Their deeds come to nothing. Even when we think, I guess it's when they think, to be fair to it, tell you who has the most to lose by their actions. Those, even when they think they're good. But yeah, ditto. That's the answer I usually give to this. Ditto. How certain are you in your own image of God? The image you have in your own mind. From where comes this massive certainty that you who have... Well, I guess because you don't think anymore. You've replaced thinking with faith. And so you don't need to understand what it means to... why it's a problem. Because in your mind, there is no problem. Yeah, I'm going to start doing these nice and regularly. Again, by... I'm not sure if you can tell, but it is nighttime here, so you can probably tell from the way I've taped my window, but it is nighttime here, so I'll start trying to record them preemptively so that I can post them once a day, back in normal schedule. Though, of course, reading things like this just makes me disgusted. Oh well. See you tomorrow then, I guess.